Yes, we are live with the Showoffs podcast. Yet again, it's Tuesday night, it's 9 o'clock, and I don't think I've ever been this excited to host our weekly podcast. And there's two reasons for this. One is you might notice that there is a glaring omission from this week's podcast. We are missing Kev, and he is hoping to join us at some point on the comments. And the reason for this, as everybody knows, Kev has made it through to the Britain's Got Talent semi-finals, and this is his rehearsal tonight. He was meant to be rehearsing at 6:30, and it's now 9 o'clock, and he's still not even rehearsed yet, so that's a wee bit shit. But he is gutted to not be here because we have some phenomenal guests. So listen, a big welcome to everybody that's joining us tonight. Straight away, we've got a comment in, as always, from DJ Wood. He's saying, hi, Gav, and no, Kev. Yeah, unfortunately, he's not here. And it's great to know that we've got Stephen coming in from Ohio. He's managed to get his audio actually working for a change, which is great. So, listen, if you're joining us for the first time, my name is Gavin Oates. This is the Showoffs podcast. The entire show is dedicated to anybody who has ever dared to just put themselves out there, who's dared to show off their skill, their passion, their talent, their energy. Hey, Claire, welcome this week again. And who's ever just dared to, just go for it. And we've been promising you some very special guests over the last couple of weeks. And a big hello to Lewis there. And of course, Mardy and James from Troon. We've got Mardy from Aviemore, Lewis from Edinburgh. Do you know, it's great to see people flooding in already. That's amazing. The numbers are jumping. Mark, good to see you. Mark has, do you know what? I need to pop this up quickly before I tell you more about our guest. Mark has put a comment on here saying, I hope your eyes have recovered. Mark spotted a tweet from me during the week where I was talking about how I had chili on my fingers and I rubbed my eyes. I'd just like to make it very clear, it's one of the stupidest things I've ever done, and I don't recommend you do it. Chilies and eyes, it's not really a good combination. So, folks, we've been promising you some amazing guests, and we have had some amazing guests. We had Lino from Thundercats on this show a few weeks ago. The actual dude that voices Lino, Larry Kenny, was an absolute treat. We've had Jason Byrne on this show. And of course, we promised you last week that we were going to have Edinburgh Fringe legends Slaughterhouse Live. Now, I need to tell you a wee bit about Slaughterhouse Live. Slaughterhouse Live, I'm going to say this before I bring them on. They can hear me. I can't hear them, so they can say whatever they want at this point. They're absolute heroes of mine, and I mean actual heroes. And it's not often you get to meet your heroes, but if we go way, way back to the early 2000s at the Edinburgh Fringe, I was working in a venue in Edinburgh called The Caves, and there was a show due to be on called Slaughterhouse Live. And the strap line was so wrong, it's right. And if you've ever read any of my books, you will know what these guys mean to me. So we reached out to them. And we said, would you come on the show? And I'm delighted to tell you that they said yes. And they're here. Well, I say they're here. Two of them are here. There's meant to be the third one. There's three of them, you see. Another one should be here. But what's really funny is he's also been doing stuff for Britain's Got Talent. So this is where it all gets crossed over and interconnected and mightily strange. So you've got Steve from Slaughterhouse Live, who you might have seen on the telly on Saturday, along with Kev. He's also through to the semi-finals. And you've got Kev from Showoffs podcast, who is stuck doing his rehearsal. So we've got lots to talk about. Hopefully Steve will be able to join us. Not sure if Kev's going to be able to join us, but it doesn't matter because we have in the studio, in the studio, we're not even in the studio. I'm in my house and they're in their houses. But on the show tonight, up first, we have... Oh, it's not working. There we go. We have Gary and we have Martin on the show. Dudes, we're live.
Hello. Hello. How you doing?
Hey, mate.
What's he reading?
Right. You know what?
This is just, I mean, honestly, this is great. Gav, this is amazing. Do you know, it's better than this shite. Oh my God. I don't know if you've read that. That M really it's inappropriate. That is the wrong consonant, I'm afraid. But this, wow, now we're cooking.
So I would like to just well, firstly, before I even say hello and welcome, and can I just say I did not ask Gary to hold those books up. They're my books. And I noticed you were reading the one for kids first there, and actually. Exactly. See, with Shine, I actually thought it would be brilliant if we had called it Shite and the N was pushing the T out of Shite, just as a...
That would have been genius.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
the
Because
problem was, I thought of that after they were printed. So it doesn't really
because
work that way.
we're from Manchester, we call it shine. You know, I have to do my hair like that. I can't. Anyway,
I love it.
Honestly, but we haven't got the book in which you give us the most remarkable review. I've got the book, but it's on my e-reader, the one that you.
Life will see you now. The other one.
Yeah, unbelievable. That's just like.
Well,
that's my go-to place. That's my safe space when I need some like reassurance about my self-worth. And when you're facing the stark, cold emptiness of a meaningless cosmos, I go to that book.
Who's here?
Hang on.
There's Steve. Steve.
Gav, how are we?
Very good, mate.
Great choice. I think of all the times to do a podcast, 5 minutes before bedtime on the day before they go back to school after 6 months off is probably the most ideal time to plan this, wasn't it?
You've got to remember, in Scotland, our kids went back 2.5 weeks ago. But do you know why? Because they're hard as fuck.
No, you've got a lot of catching up to do. That's the problem with your stuff.
Well, some would say, but I think with based on what's actually going on in the UK right now on all levels, I think England have a lot more catching up to do than Scotland.
Always.
Gary, how old Scarlett now?
She's 8, so she's going back on Thursday.
Are you in her bedroom now? Are you broadcasting from her bedroom? And she's going to hear everything.
Can I just ask, lads, I've asked everyone else, Gav, Gaz, Martin, do you know where her sports socks are?
For tomorrow?
No one else in the house knows where her school sports socks are. She'll ask one of them at the beginning in March.
So, do your kids go to a school where they have to wear different socks for sport?
It's a very posh school.
And they're not allowed to wear marking soles for your footwear.
Well, nobody should be wearing a marking sole in a gym hall, Martin. That's against the law.
Yeah, it is against the law. But we did buy some for my daughter today that said they ain't no marking, but the sole is black.
How old's Ruby? Is she?
She's 11.
11. Oh, so she's going to high school. Is she going to high school for the first time?
Sorry, she's 10. She's 11 next time round. Yeah. Yeah, next time she goes to high school.
Wow. Anyway, sorry, this is like
this interesting though.
I'm thinking maybe another time we could all catch up and discuss our children's ages.
Because we had none when we came to Edinburgh.
How's Ellis?
So, first up, I just want to say a massive big welcome to the three of you. Slaughterhouse Live on the Showoffs podcast, a podcast dedicated to anybody who's ever dared to put themselves out there, be silly, show off. And I have to say, you three have beyond dared to put yourself out there and show off.
I don't know about showing off, though. Showing off, it was a dignity. We had none.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually quite disappointed tonight. I thought I was going to be sharing the podcast with this fella. I'm absolutely gutted that I've been genning up on that. And look, it's just these ne'er-do-wells. And this one, I'm not even going to talk about Steve. Crikey.
So for those
the real star of BGT, Kev Quantum. See, I've done my research.
You have, and for those of you that are downloading the podcast in weeks to come, Gary's making visual gags using books with people's names on them. So so there was one with Kev's surname on it, but all the hundreds of people listening to Apple and Spotify and all the usual platforms. You'll just need to keep up with the crazy guys at our Slaughterhouse Live.
I'm just naked from the waist down.
That's the only way this show should be. Nobody should be allowed to wear clothes from the waist down.
I teach radio production as well. That's my job. And I had scant regard for any of the visual requirements or cues. So apologies.
I love how the fact that you use the phrase scant regard and Martin's got no regard for scants. So
unless it's timber. I like a bit of scant timber from the builders.
Timber scants. This has got really random, and it's the way I was hoping it would go. Lads, listen, a big welcome to the Showoffs podcast. I'm going to ask, tell me, right, there's a lot of people going to be listening to this either live just now or, like I say, on the download over the next few days and weeks who have never heard of Slaughterhouse Live. They should have. You guys don't do as much as you used to. You're all very successful in your own right. But I got to know you guys first and foremost through your time in Slaughterhouse Live. How would you sum up Slaughterhouse Live? And let me just check what time are we at. Right, you've got 50 minutes to sum up Slaughterhouse Live.
50 minutes.
Wrong.
Yes, very wrong.
We always said it was. Go on, Martin. Sorry.
My philosophy is, if it gets a laugh, do it. If it's funny, do it.
Well, can I say, there was that first year I met you, right? There's probably shit in that show that we can't even discuss anymore. However, there was also stuff that you were telling me all those years ago that was maybe going to be in the show that we absolutely cannot talk about.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
It involved a Big Brother house, didn't it?
Actually, that video did actually appear on the internet at one point.
Yeah.
We'll move on quickly.
It's still there. It's just only available to my family. I've just made it. People can log in.
Put it this way: if we were more successful, if we'd been more successful, there'd be a lot of TV executives deleting a lot of hard drives off a lot of download sites from some of the ideas we had. I hold my hand up and say they were definitely wrong.
Well, they weren't at the time. I mean, I always thought that show was kind of like it was equidistant between Kafka and Viz, is what we we all agreed that was wasn't it? But it's at the time, because it was we started our show in 2001. And that was like cresting that wave of there was the League of Gentlemen, there was Little Britain, there was Nighty Night. There was a real wave of dark comedy, wasn't there, back in the early noughties. So, and I think a lot of people had thought a lot of the big battles had been won, about sexism, racism, all that. There was a kind of feeling like, there's real positivity that obviously the big battles hadn't been won. That was just complete privilege. But we thought, right, so we could take the mickey out of loads of different stuff that you simply can't do now because we realised that's actually, yeah.
No, I was going to say also that there's that fine line between when you're doing character comedy, whether it's the character who's offensive or whether it's you who's being offensive, creating that character to be offensive. Do you understand what I mean? So we used to, it's used by so many people, isn't it? The Alf Garnett, argument. He said some wrong things, but it was the character that was wrong, and we're all laughing at the character. And I think that was probably the basis of a lot of them. We never intentionally, without a doubt, designed to offend anyone. And no. I don't recall. I remember the Later Live. There was one particular Later Live where Gary, who ironically is a massive vegan now,
massive being the right, very massive.
Used to wave his meat in people's face. I mean, he still does that, but it's
exactly.
Gav remembers a festated head at the Sulo bin.
Well,
at the bottom of the road cave.
I don't think he can get the smell out of his nostrils.
The first time we arrived in the Edinburgh Festival, 2003, Caves. It was Gilded Balloon. Gav was front of house manager. Was that right, Gav?
Yeah.
And we rolled up, and then I was doing an act called The Dancing Giblets, a character called Ronnie Buttons, had a meat puppetry show. I'm vegan now, and I find the whole thing kind of like perplexing. But there you go. That was me, But
the best thing of getting there was to find out where the local butcher's was. A supply of meat.
Anderson, you turned up. Well, firstly, right? You turned up on day one, and you had firstly a toilet, right? That was the first thing I saw.
We had 3 toilets.
But you did have 3 toilets. But I saw Gary with 1 toilet, and one of the first questions was, "Where's the local butcher?" And I had no idea why. And then you were telling me that you were doing a meat puppetry show. So again, I just want to repeat that meat puppetry show. And you did a thing called the Dancing Giblets, and then mate, about 2 hours later, you arrived back, right? But not only did you have a cool box with giblets and things in it, you had a pig's head.
Yeah. It was
an actual pig's head, and then every few days you had to go and get a new pig's head.
Yeah, I remember that the night. The problem was as well that we wanted to store it somewhere. And was she called Julie? I don't know if we can name names.
Yeah, that's fine.
Vicky. No, it was Vicky. Vicky was working at the bar, and she said you can store up the trotters, and there was an eyeball necklace, and we did the thing called
There you go.
I think. Oh, there we go. Fantastic. We did loads of
Higher and lower was a good game. Higher or lower.
Origin of pieces, where it was higher or lower on the animal. But no, we had a bull's willy, didn't we? And then there was a lamb's testicles. And
speak for yourself, Gary.
I mean, I find this now completely ideologically unsound, but at the time. But the thing is, Vicky put the giblets into the fridge where they kept all the strawberry hooch and all that for the punters. And but for some reason, I don't know, it was a malfunction or she pressed the wrong button. It went into heat mode, I think.
That's right. Yeah.
And did it start to cook it instead of actually?
Yeah, I think it's called an oven, Gary.
I'm sure
I just remember the smell that particular day when we went back, and it had pitched through the whole of the caves. I mean, the caves smell of a dampness anyway, but how the
it was in the bin,
rotten flesh
across the road.
People were walking past the venue going, what was, I reckon we could have probably sold a lot more tickets if we wanted. A lot of people turned away at the door because of the stench.
It still doesn't paint a picture of what he actually did with it, which was very funny. It was funny.
But the thing was, we only ever did the dancing giblets in that first year. We did 7 runs in Edinburgh. 7.5, really, and but we only ever did it that first run. The next time we didn't do it. Although we did one gig in the second run, which was at Leighton Live, when we had a monumental barracking and got somebody stood up. Oh, this is the best heckle I've ever had. Anyway, I was in the middle of the dancing giblets, and someone stood up and said, "For the love of God, fuck off." And if we can say that, can we say that word on the podcast? I don't know, but that's
of course you can.
It's pushing the boundaries. I love it.
But the thing is, you guys. So when you guys turned up that first year, was that? Let me think. Was it 2002? 2003? 2003.
Yeah, 2003. First one.
And I just remember, I was so obsessed with the likes of Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer, and the stuff that was different. A lot of those really crazy characters.
Yeah.
Talk our listeners through, and the viewers tonight, some of the characters. I mean, you had people like Ian Crazy and the Talking Wheat Sheaf, and then and for those of you that are watching live, he's actually got the Wheat Sheaf. Gary, if you
should we do the song?
Do it. Just do it.
I can't remember it. I can't remember what it was. I just remember saying, "Should we sing the song?" What, you think we should kill everybody in the room? No, I think we should just sing the song. All right. I'll get my knife.
I'll get my knife.
That's my favourite line, I think, of anything we've ever done. Is that, all right, I'll get my knife.
All right, I'll get my knife.
I think I would agree with you, Steve. I mean, you guys know how much I love all your shows and all your characters, and I have never laughed more at a show than I did. And that first run, I mean, I sat in the audience every single day and watched you guys. But Ian Crazy and the Talking Wheat Sheaf, when that line got delivered, that was me every day, just gone.
Oh,
and what's so fantastic is years later, when my son Cian was born, Gary kept referring to him as Cian Crazy, and he actually gifted Cian a wheat sheaf. So we had.
It's true testament to any act, and I've seen Ian Crazy so many times. I mean, I don't know how many times we did that Edinburgh run. It must have been nearly 30 times just that in that one run. Yeah. But I've never ever failed to laugh out loud at the act, and that's ridiculous when you're working with someone and you see it so many times. And I think the same can be said for Dave Media as well. I've seen Dave Media again Gary's creations. I don't laugh at anyone else's. It's just Gary. Utter respect for Gary.
I think the genius piece was Graham Mind, because it had zero writing, but it was guaranteed the biggest laugh of the night.
So Martin, you played Graham Mind. Go and tell everybody that's watching a little bit about Graham Mind. What was the kind of the idea?
Graham's a psychic, basically. He's a mind-bending mentor. He is amazing. He gets into everybody's head, and he will deliver on the night. He has, but basically, what is like a 2 to 3 minute build-up of War of the Worlds while he gets into the zone, and he plays the crowd. He surfs the crowd, grabbing information, just visually, not saying anything, snatching it from the heads and inserting it into his, until eventually he's ready to deliver on the stage to a solo spot, silence as the music just fades away, to deliver with the not getting anything. Just walks off.
Yeah, love it.
That's it.
Love it.
And the number of times I've been so frustrated when we've done gigs and worked, sweated our backsides off for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of material. And Martin doing that has stolen, I would say, 95% of Slaughterhouse live gigs afterwards. When people say, "What's your favourite character or favourite moment?" always cite my Martin doing Graham Mind, and you just go, "Oh, all that effort." That's why it's genius. That's why
it's the lads that tell you I'm shit with lines. I'm crap at intaking it. I have to. Everything's virtually an ad lib element. So if I was given lines, I'd ruin it. I would ruin it. So
but
for me.
Martin's other skill, and Gavin, I think you must be able to appreciate this, and so I know Gary certainly does. He has a head that is perfect to manipulate into any kind of character you want. He's got this ability. Whereas me and Gary, Mike, we can put a wig on our false teeth and we look like Gary and Steve with a wig on and false teeth. Whereas Martin has this ability to transform himself into the most ridiculous characters, visually hilarious characters. Yeah. Just because, I don't know, it's the size of the head. I mean, I've got a tiny head. Maybe, I don't know what it is about it, but if we were all to dress up, I said, right, you've all got to dress tomorrow as one of the Bee Gees. We'd look quite amusing. Martin would look hilarious. And I don't know why.
The sheer detail.
It's your fat, stocky build and the cranium. That's it. It is a cranium.
The cranium
is massive.
We've shared beds, we've shared accommodations, we've shared meals, but I've never shared hats with Martin Pemberton.
Do you know, one of my favourite characters in the show is, though, I think, is, well, I don't know if you've seen this one, Gav. I don't know if we do it in Edinburgh. It's Tommy Kittens, Britain's cleanest comedian.
Yeah, I saw Tommy Kittens.
Comedian.
Yeah. Have we done that in Edinburgh? I can't remember.
Did you not do Tommy Kittens? Remember you?
Oh yes,
remember you did back. Yeah, you did 3 nights for the Colour Ham, remember?
Yeah, when we stepped into the Colour Ham for those 3 nights, that would be Tommy Kittens. That would have been Tommy Kittens that year. I'll tell you the story. To tell you Tommy Kittens, I'll tell you the full story, because there was a guy called Dougie Chapman who was a big impresario in Blackpool. And I was still working on BBC Radio Lancashire, and he used to send me leaflets about his upcoming shows all the time. So he'd have a variety show, an old-time music hall show, and he once sent me a leaflet. And on this leaflet, I had a list of people like Bernie Clifton, the hilarious Bernie Clifton and his ostrich, and the lovely Beryl Reid, and a fabulous singing voice. And then at the bottom, it had this black and white picture of a guy called something like Bobby King. Bobby King. And then it just had a tag, Britain's cleanest comedian. And I looked at this and I thought, that's the vaguest, strangest thing to say. Because you're either clean or you're not. Do you know what I mean? You're not the cleanest. Yeah. How do you become the cleanest?
It's not the key criteria when you're looking for a night out.
No, I saw the other guy. He didn't swear much, but he wasn't really clean. This guy's proper clean. So I had the idea. And then for years, I think for 2 or 3 years, I used to joke about this guy to you, Gary. I used to often say, have you seen this guy? I like the idea that he's got a catchphrase that is, "What one to say?" And all the audience shout back, "Fuck yourself," or whatever. and then his catchphrase comes from, "Ooh, not from my lips. I'm Britain's clean." So then that's how I developed the idea of the character who basically got the audience to do all the swearing so he maintained the title of being clean himself. And that's the whole premise of it.
And so you flash up on the back on the screen on PowerPoint the most extraordinarily blue punchlines in big bold, Garamond type, and then the audience read them out. I just think it's great. Yeah, and it means and it's lovely to see a mixed crowd bellowing the word ring piece. Wank shaft,
piss slaps.
Yeah,
we could go on. We could go on.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the fact that I can just sit here in silence on my own show, and you guys are shouting piss flaps and brilliant. I mean, this is why we do the show.
It's very difficult to write that, though. It's very difficult to write that bit because you've got to find a joke that has got a very short, sweary punchline. Pretty difficult.
Now, it's hard to find something that's totally clean, other than, like you said, a punchline. The other punchline is the only bit of filth in the joke. It is hard. You're right there.
So we've got a comment here from on the comment section here from Stephen, who's in Ohio, and he's saying, "Do they speak English in Manchester? I thought Gav had a thick accent."
Oh no! Hey, I like Steve's surname. To be fair, he could be part of Tommy Kitten's act.
But you guys had like loads and loads of other characters. I mean, Martin, you had the world's smallest man. You guys, you did there was hot beef and salad, who I loved, and you had what were they called? The guys from Chad.
Oh, the long faces.
Oh, long faces. Yeah.
I used to love doing them. I used to love. It was to describe that. It was basically long. Yeah, like the kind of masks you get on as ornamental on your wall from I think they're actually from Bali, but we like the idea. We just put them on once. I can't even remember how we created it. I remember Martin making the masks, and then it was just all musical. It was all just movement to music, but it was just it was crazy, wasn't it? That was one of our most wild and wackiest, you might call.
That for me was the sort of Vic and Bob moment.
Absolutely. That was
very, very in keeping with them. And I remember that first day that I ever sat and watched you guys, and I was loving the show, and you got to that bit, and I was like, wow, that's like right out there. And I remember, because of my job at the time, I wasn't quite sitting in the audience. I was off to the side and kind of nipping in and out, and I just remember watching the faces of other people as you were doing the long faces from Chad, and it got to the point where I thought, this is the moment I'm going to come in every single day just to watch other people's responses, because just to be, but it was fucking weird, but it was so funny. And actually, one of you guys mentioned there that Martin had made the masks. Martin, you used to make some amazing stuff for the show, but just for the sake of our viewers and our listeners, there's been an amazing connection that we've discovered this week. With my co-host Kev, who, for those of you that have joined us a wee bit late, Kev unfortunately is caught in his Britain's Got Talent rehearsal tonight. Steve,
that's no excuse. That's no excuse.
And those of you that saw the show will know that Steve is also in the live shows. Well, they're not live, are they? But then the semi-finals, sorry. But Martin, it turns out you built Kev's set for his semi-final performance. Is that right?
Yeah, and totally unbeknown. I should have recognised him. I'm thinking, where do I know you from? And he came to our workshop for a fitting because we got the not contract, but for certain elements of the show, we've been making and designing to help out some of the performers as subcontractors to the show. And Kevin came down, and he came down for a fitting for us to make his next bit of equipment. And I hadn't even clocked it that it was him, but I'm thinking, I know you from somewhere. But I never had a chat with him. There was 3 or 4 of us all flitting around and just doing. And then once he's had his fit in, he goes and we make it. And then it's only this last week in talking, oh, God, I know who he is. I can't believe it. I cradled his head the other day. That was it. At a social distance.
The thing is, we shared a billing that year at Edinburgh. I mean, you guys only did was it 3 nights? I think there were 3 nights that we couldn't do. And Daryl, that was running the venue that year, he was like, how am I going to find somebody for those 3 nights? And I was like, I know just the guys. The guys. And then, of course, but there's this other connection, of course, with you, Steve. Just turns out you and Kev are both in Britain's Got Talent in the same year. And it just feels like in this last few days, Colour Ham, Slaughterhouse Live, they've all just weirdly come back
get it all back together. Let's not talk about it in past tense.
It's a beautiful thing as well. Like Martin, you're the double agent then, aren't you? You're kind of like you're our mole on the inside.
As you were my best man at my wedding, I am certainly hoping that you've nobbled him his act in some way. I mean, please tell me.
I wasn't your best man. Tell me, my best man.
Oh yeah, I was. Well, listen, you go back a long way. I can't believe you're working for the opposition.
Listen, it's all been dealt with. It's all right. Kev's not getting anywhere.
I was watching, obviously, from when it was aired back in April. I was watching I watched all the Britain's Got Talent shows, and when he came on, I'm going, I know that face. I know. Yeah. And then I think it was you, Gavin, who told me and said, "Oh, my mate Kev's in this," and I'm going, that's how I know from The Colour of Ham. And funny enough, I spoke to him yesterday because with the filming the semi-finals this week, and I did my semi-final. I filmed it last Friday, and I know Kev's filming his this week. So I tried to give him as much, tried to give him much help as I possibly could, because it's a very strange situation at the moment with not having an audience and having a big wall. But you'll see it on Saturday night when the first episode goes out. It's a big screen you're performing to, really, and then the 4 judges at the table. So I'm hoping I've given him some good advice. Not too much, obviously. Yeah. I'm not an idiot. I'm not an idiot.
So, Steve, for the shows, then the big screen that you're performing to, is that your virtual audience? Is that your family and friends? Is that how it's working?
It's all the acts, families and friends, plus another 360, I think it is, invited lucky people. Basically, they're who've applied for tickets in the same way that you apply for any TV show. It's massive. All I can say is you can't pick out a single face. So and this is what I was explaining to Kevin the other day, if you wanted to use that in terms of the lady there, or if you wanted to involve it would be very, very tricky, because it's basically 500 television sets all piled up on top of each other.
Yeah, okay, because we had to sign a form. We're part of, my wife and I and the kids are part of Kev's virtual audience, so we'll be on that screen. But now that I know you're not going to see me, there's no point in watching it. It sounds shit.
Well, I wouldn't worry. I wouldn't worry about making an effort like my wife. I got 3 teenage daughters. They spent like 3 hours getting made up, and they couldn't spot them at all on the screen.
They couldn't log in anyway.
My mum I know it's so difficult to log in. My mum ended up watching it in her pajamas. She was fully dressed at the beginning of the show. By the time it had finished, she was in her pajamas.
The great thing about Britain's Got Talent is actually that programme is pretty much our show, Slaughterhouse Live. It's a variety show. If Pat Stevens and his musical eyes went on Britain's Got Talent, then I wouldn't be surprised at all. Graham Mine could be on there, Tommy Kittens, the whole lot, Dave Media.
When I was there, obviously they only show a select number of acts on the actual programme. But when you go for the auditions, they do 2 shows, one in the afternoon and one in the evening. And Gary, you say that, and I all the way through, I was spotting various potential Slaughterhouse characters because there's some amazing people who do some just ridiculous things on that stage in the hope of being found out. And some of them,
Knockers and Cocks are good.
Knockers and Cocks are good down very well. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll be good.
Just the Brit. Yeah.
I still think you should do a version of Hot Beef and Salad, and that's it.
Yeah. Convince people we're from Uruguay.
But I genuinely think it's the kind of thing that Simon Cowell will be like, yeah, this is fucking brilliant. Yeah. This is what the world needs. I mean, he sat on telly the other night there looking at that dinosaur playing a keyboard, which was pure shite. And he was like, "Oh, this is what the world needs." I tell you what the world needs. It needs a Hungarian pop duo called Hot Beef and Salad, who hold up kiwis and tomato.
You just know that for months afterwards, people will be holding up kiwis and tomatoes and bananas, and just singing along to it, won't they? Without a doubt.
Every year, there's like a really terrible song but is actually a really catchy song that takes off. And you know that Simon Cowell's sitting there going, "Aye, Christmas #1, genius."
Yeah. Hot beef and salad #1 at Christmas. How good would that be?
You could have Christmas fruits as well. You could do that.
Sounds amazing. We've got Stephen from Ohio's jumping in with a wee question here. He's keen to know where is the best place to catch recorded material for Slaughterhouse Live. Now we were talking at the start. We were talking at the start about how there was some stuff that no one will ever see that in the light of day again. However, we actually set the audience some homework last week, and the homework was to watch the Truth Prism video. Because I, obviously, as a huge fan, have often shared that video with people, and we felt that, Kev's seen you guys before, not as much as myself, but Kev has seen you guys do your thing, and we felt that it was, obviously, they can't come to you guys live, but that was a good thing to try and, I guess, just capture the silliness, the cleverness, but the silliness of what it is that you guys do. So for Stephen over in Ohio and anyone else that's listening throughout the next few weeks on Spotify, Apple, and all the usual platforms, where can people go to see some stuff of you guys?
Yeah, well, we've got a YouTube channel. So if you go to Slaughterhouse Live on YouTube, Slaughterhouse Live, all one word, that should take you to a treasure, an Aladdin's cave of videos of varying quality. Some of them.
But it made more sense to what we've been talking about because nobody's actually seen this.
No one knows what we're talking about.
They want to know about the characters and what they do and what they are. So, but the
majority of the stuff that we've got on video on YouTube, though, it isn't the characters that we do in the show. They were things that supplemented our live show because sometimes we need to get changed backstage. So we'd play we did a video called Truth Prism about a bloke who thought his arm was longer than they were, and there was another guy that thought his arms were shorter than they were, and they met. And then there's the other one about a little, a kind of a parody of Little Angels. Remember that program about kids and how to make your unruly kid? So we called Little Bastards, and we did just loads of them. We did.
We should say about Truth Prism. There was a huge gap between the beginning and the end of that film. So if people have watched the Truth Prism, the initial idea, if you remember, Gary, when we filmed it, the idea was we'd show them a clip, show the audience a clip of the guy who thought his arms were too long, or longer than they actually were. Then they showed a clip of the guy who thought his arms were shorter. And then the next bit used to be live on stage, where we finally meet, and we just simply walk on stage and shake hands for the first time with anyone because our hands, for the first time ever, we managed to find something. And that was the end of the gag. And then it was about 2 years later that we thought we need to actually do a conclusion to this video. And it was about 2 years later that we finally filmed the scenes where they go on a date together.
Is that all on the channel to see as well?
Yeah, but no one would ever detect that. No one would ever know that it was like 2 years later.
It was a beautiful bit of editing.
Parallaxical appendage disorder.
Oh, well remembered. Well remembered. Yeah. Listen, actually, it turns out that Stephen over in Ohio actually did his homework. He watched it.
Oh,
thank you, Stephen. Thank you.
Oh, bless you, mate. Thank you, Steve.
Did he watch the Fleetwood Twatter?
Oh yeah, Fleetwood Twatter is confusing.
That
was one of the funniest moments of my life. The Fleetwood Twatter is about a boxer from a seaside resort in the north of England called Fleetwood, and basically he'd retired, and then his old nemesis, the Pink Pounder, tracks him down for a rematch, and the Pink Pounder was reckoned he was a victim of homophobic refereeing of the time. That's the premise of it, wasn't it, Gary?
Yeah,
and so
that out there as well.
That's out there.
That's out there.
Yeah, I was going to say that one of the funniest moments of my entire life was it was a freezing cold day, stood up to my waist in the sea in Fleetwood, punching the sea, literally just punching the sea and pretending to catch fish as a result of, like instead of using a rod, instead of using a net, he punched the fish. And then, but what we did, you remember, Gary, we bought loads of fish, put them in a net, and then I had to literally punch the sea, go under and grab a fish, pick it up, and then throw it onto the beach. And I think we did so many takes, and then eventually we did one where I managed to grab enough fish. I think it was about 5 or 6 fish, and took one of each. We finally got the take that we needed.
And the take as well is another one. A picture of you as the Fleetwood Twatted walking along the prom at Fleetwood, and you're just walking along with your haul, with your fish in a net on your back, and there's a seagull that just sort of like comes into view, just hovers back next to you, and then absent-mindedly, just you don't even look at it, you just throw your arm out and punch it, and
the best thing is,
it took ages to film that.
Oh, absolutely ridiculous.
There's no lock off. It's you're walking amongst the general public.
Yeah, you're right.
Which is great, because one thing that we never really did up in Edinburgh, Gav, was to the openings of our shows that we often did back home, and we had the time where it was a full Slaughterhouse production. We always had a video that showed our journey to get into stage. And we would spend a couple of days doing these videos. And I don't know whether they're up there, because Gary's always our man to go to regards to posting. But some of the
I've not got all of them. I've got some of them.
I was going to say, the funny thing about that was this year, Britain's Got Talent, when they went to the Lowry Theatre, the first time we ever did that was at the Lowry Theatre. And there was one year we were at the Lowry Theatre, and we rode to the venue. And then this year, just by fluke, unless they were at one of our gigs years ago, Simon Cowell and David Williams, etc. But they chose to do exactly the same. And they got in a boat and they basically sailed to the venue. And as they were doing it, I'm going, I can't believe they're doing this.
Yeah, no, that's
right.
It was
a journey. It's our journey to stage. All the characters that were within the Slaughterhouse Live. And it was while the audience sat themselves down, and when you wait for the late comers to come in, it would be a 15 to 20 minute video that people were watching of our journey on our way to go and entertain them. And that one that Steve's on about, we had Ronnie Buttons, our butcher compere, which is Gary, and he would start it off jumping into a boat on the canal, starts rowing, and then meeting up with the rest of us in our different positions. I was on a bridge as if I was about to commit suicide and throw a brick over. Tried to melt scrotum, as you do. Is
that your son in the background listening to what you're saying?
Lad, yeah.
I've never seen a kid looking so proud of his father at the moment when you tell him about tying a brick to your scrotum.
I had a brick.
He gave me the idea.
The funniest one about
I had him shortly after that, so maybe
the funniest bit about that. I don't know if Martin and Gary remember this, but the funniest bit about filming that one, where we were rowing, it was filmed near my house, literally where I'm sat now. It was filmed about half a mile on the canal here, and we started filming with Martin had sourced a boat to go in the canal, and the idea was, like you said, Gary would get the boat out, get in the boat, and row down the canal. So we filmed all it. Yeah, so we filmed him coming out of a building, locking it up with all his meat in his hand. He'd walk, strolled down to the canal. He got his boat, got the oars, climbed into the boat. And then we were all filming it. And it was at this point that Gary he started just drifting and going like randomly with the oars. And we get, Gary, you got to row down this way. We need to. He went, I don't know how to row. And we went, what? And that was it. It was that moment. That was the moment you chose to confess that you've never rowed a boat before.
Gary Morris can't row. That should be my name. Gary
Morris. Then the journey was from him. He went on to somebody else, and you had Wilkie at the time was fishing, wasn't he? And he liked to look at fishing. He jumps in the boat, tempted in by Ronnie Buttons and his sausages waving him at the odd fisherman who was also in his underpants.
We all dived in the canal. We all just dived into a canal. We risked our lives for comedy. Yeah. We've risked our lives
Will
for
was doing a few lengths up and down the canal, and Ronnie happened to be going past, and Wilkie brings him in. Then Steve's gets in.
Well, the thing was, at the very end of that film, when we got to the Lowry, the actual end, just before the end of the film, this is when the audience are settling down in the theatre, they're watching us all meeting each other on the canal. Then we get out of the boat, and then we get on a motorbike, and then we appear on the stage.
The human pyramid.
On a motorbike. That's what we did.
Yeah.
Which was
You guys mentioned a couple other names there. We can go into as much detail or as little detail as you want, but you guys used to be a 5-piece, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when we first began.
One short of half a dozen.
We've dished the chaff. We kept the wheat, haven't we? No, we've developed as the years have gone on, haven't we? The actual story is, well, the first from the 5, we got down to 4 because well, basically the fifth member was married to my wife and decided to run off with someone.
No, I was married to your sister.
Yeah, sorry, my wife. Married to my wife. We're very close in Lancashire.
Very interesting.
Yeah, my brother-in-law. He was my brother-in-law, and actually, he was never ever fired. He just never turned up to rehearsals, did he? He just stopped coming, basically.
Yeah,
he was never officially.
No, there was no meeting or anything. It was just, but there was clearly going to be some strange atmosphere as a consequence of, a vapor trail of broken marriages, etc. But, it kind of just faded out. It was all sort of amicable, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Let's get on to what the listeners would like to hear, though.
Sorry,
about Slaughterhouse and our material and what we did.
Can I just say, we talked about those videos that we did before the show started, and when the audience were kind of like settling into the seats and just watching it on the screen. We did one.
Seamless.
We started our show in Manchester, in a pub called the Thirsty Scholar on Oxford Road, opposite the old BBC building. And and one night, the first video was 30 minutes long, was of Steve and his wife Janet snogging for 30 minutes, just like
it was
heavy petting. We wanted to make it as really uncomfortable.
I forgot about that.
Uncomfortable.
That's the last time she kissed me.
It was you got a lifetime of snogging.
Gary, I love the fact you used the phrase heavy petting.
Heavy petting.
Like I've not heard that phrase since the posters that used to be in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Heavy petting.
I never used to understand them. I used to think, well, why would you bring a big dog into the pool?
Don't bring no heavy petting.
So tell me, one of the big things about this show that me and Kev do, it's this idea of we have people on who have just taken that leap of faith to put themselves out there in front of the world, whether it's comedy, whether it's magic, whether it's dance, whether it's gymnastics, whether it's anything. It doesn't matter. Why do you guys do it? I know me and Kev have spoken really like at length on this show over the last couple of months, and actually some of the chat gets really deep about why we put ourselves on stage and what it is, because me personally, I have all sorts of stuff around anxiety and stuff that I've always fought away with, but being on stage, for some reason, that moment, I'm just at my happiest. What is it about you guys? Why do you do what you do, and why do you keep doing it? Because there's times where it's shit, and there's times where it's exhausting, and there's the traveling, and there's not an awful lot of money. Why do you three do what you do?
That's a really good question.
It's a good one. It is a good one, that, isn't it?
Go for it.
I was going to say, I just think, personally, I think there's definitely an escapism certainly in the characters. For a long time, even though I appear as myself now, like, in the Britain's Got Talent, I'm Steve Ryan and myself, but I would never even, I couldn't do that for many, many years. I hid behind, was at Camelot Theme Park with Martin here. We were doing Mad Edgar and Jess, and we always, it was almost like, I'm embarrassed of myself. I always wanted to perform, but I'm not a person at a party. I know Gary's a lot more sociable than both me and Martin. Usually at any events in Edinburgh, Gary and Will used to just go off and socialise, and I used to be stuck side in a corner because I'm very antisocial kind of guy. I don't like to meet, and I suppose performing is the way of getting the other side of me, or being someone that I'm not really, that's not really me who I want to be. I want to be the person. I want to be that person I am on stage. I'm not actually him.
I think
the long faces from Chad.
Yeah, oh, perfect. Uncle Dildo.
There's a thing as well, like you're saying, appreciation for other acts, like Vic and Bob, when they are, and you like it so much, you laugh at it so much, and you get it. And you think to yourself, I've got some of that, and I want to do that as well. It's like a domino effect of, you think, I can add to that. I've got something new I can bring to the table that's right up the street of everything that's there, and you get hooked by it. And it is a trial and error process, and the whole getting on stage can be trial and error, and especially what we've done there with the Slaughterhouse. but the payoff is great. The audience payback is immediate. It's brilliant. Reaction. Is there a back door to this place? Which is the old gag as well.
I think it is. There is a sense of that. You kind of the idea of actually kind of not making a living. Making a living would be lovely out of it, wouldn't it? Steve does it as his comedy, but I think the idea of actually being on stage and doing something that is clearly pointless. It's an entirely pointless and nonsensical.
It's relief to everybody.
I think there's something totally joyous about it. It's like, because the world is absurd. It's the
Thirsty Scholar where we started out, Gary. The Thirsty Scholar where we started out, which was a little attic room in a pub in Manchester. For everybody who's in America, obviously, like a little pub, a little English pub in the city centre of Manchester. And we were in an attic room that only sat a few people. And you would hear and feel the trains going by. But it was like a little den. It was brilliant birthplace of the Slaughterhouse.
I have to say,
I loved it there.
Yeah, it was gorgeous.
I have to say, Gary, I think the government have adopted your attitude that it's totally pointless. Due to their reaction to the entertainment industry over the last 6 months, I think they're in total agreement that what we do is utterly pointless.
Well,
we were birthed at the last pandemic. We were birthed at the last pandemic of foot and mouth, and maybe now there should be a COVID birth of it.
Maybe
something back.
So that's a question. That's a question I want to ask you guys. Do you think there'll ever be another Slaughterhouse live show?
Yes, I want to.
Yeah, we've got to write some new material. I think the thing is, when we were doing our last show we did was 2018 Lowry. No, actually, last year we did a wedding last year, didn't we? In 2019, so it's only a year since we last did a show. But we did the Lowry, a full big show, only a year and a half ago. And
just depends how far I go in the Britain's Got Talent, Gav, to be honest. I'm being asked all the time now, what if you win it? What will you do with the money? I'll retire.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Yeah.
Blow it all into a Slaughterhouse tour.
I think we all. There's something, like you say,
unfinished.
We all do our individual things, but it's something lovely about being with your friends on stage and all enjoying it together. Because I do stand-up comedy all up and down the country, and it's a lonely, lonely business. And yet, when we do Slaughterhouse Live, dying, we've had our terrible deaths, we've had our great glorious gigs. Yeah. Either way, you do it as a team. Good.
Yeah, so that's a great point, Steve. I mean, I remember my very, very first attempt at stand-up comedy when I was about 18, 19, and I was one half of a double act with my mate Rory, and our first ever gig in London, we absolutely bombed. Like, we got basically booed off. People were shouting things like, "Would you just tell us a fucking joke?" And it was so difficult. And
for the love of God.
Yeah, but we got in the taxi after the show to go back to the hotel, and we were just sitting in absolute silence, and it was painful. And Rory piped up and said, "Can you imagine you were on your own right now?" And I just thought, that's so true. Like, I had that in that show, and then with the Colour Ham, there was 3 of us, obviously, and unlike you, we just had glorious shows. We didn't ever bomb. However, we obviously had some tougher gigs. Of course we did. We had some disappointing moments and so on. But to have your pals with you, to have that camaraderie, I think part of the difference for us, I think, our relationships. I don't know if you guys' relationships ever got strained a little bit under the pressure of everything. Ours definitely did. And that's, the bigger you get, the busier you get, both as a group and individually. The more people expect from your show. It got to a point where we were struggling to find the time to write and rehearse, and that's no one's fault. It just, but it puts a strain on the relationship as well. Have you guys ever had that?
We were lucky because we never got big enough for the strain to actually manifest.
I think there's Gary was slightly behind us in the parenting, weren't you? In terms of parenting,
yeah.
And when we were doing Edinburgh. When we were doing Edinburgh, we were bringing up, we bring up subjects of like, oh, well, I can't really do. He'd be saying, let's do this, very full on, and we'd be saying, well, I when we first did Edinburgh, my daughter was like 6 months old, and she came up to Edinburgh, and I'm going, well, Gary, I can't come to do that gig because Janet's up with the baby, and it was for many years we used to do a lot. There were a lot of gigs where Gary used to be so enthusiastic, understandably, and want to rehearse here, there, and everywhere, and our family lives were in the way. And then I think Gary suddenly started to get a bit of realization when you finally started your family, and Scarlett came along, and you sort of got a bit of a realization about what we were going through in all those Edinburgh years.
Yeah, and looking back now, because we did 4 or 5 full Edinburgh runs, and then a couple of shorter runs, and you all had kids at that, but I didn't have kids when we did the full runs. And I'm so amazed that you, because I know I was like powering your head and thinking, well, where's everybody else? Well,
but it had its benefits. It has its benefits because you were driving it. And maybe it would have fallen by the wayside if you had your enthusiasm and drive for it was fantastic. And I think one thing to answer the question you said before about in numbers and the safety of numbers is to have the numbers that we have is bouncing material off each other and creating characters, and also that it can create a kind of jealousy because you become jealous of each other's characters, going, "Oh, that's genius!" And we've often thought that over Gary.
But we've also,
if you watch the rerun now of the Fast Show, and they're talking about how they develop characters and the way that they constructed it and the numbers, and it was so many familiarities with loads of people out there that do a variety of performers within the same acts. You know, like we had winning a comedy troupe. It's so many benefits to bounce that material and create the characters.
But I can't recall any occasion where we've had an argument. A big argument. No. And I think that's down to the fact that we are all totally different. We are all very, very different.
I disagree with that.
Yet,
there was a moment when we found out that Wilkie was cheating on his sister. We all went, "What we're going to do? What we're going to do?"
Yeah.
I think there is generally, we talk about creative differences, and if you look at like the Pythons and all that, there was always kind of like a bit of animosity between certain characters, and there was little silos and different allegiances or alliances.
It's healthy, though. It's healthy.
But we didn't really have any of that. We didn't have any creative differences. There was no kind of like. There was no grit in the oyster.
I think,
which is probably a bad thing.
I think looking back, if we perhaps adopted a director for some of our shows, because we had so much respect for each other and what we were creating. Yeah. Even if someone created something that we necessarily didn't think was that funny, we trusted them so implicitly that we maybe let them go, and maybe another eye looking in and saying, "Look, lads, you're too nice to say it, but I'll tell you that's not funny, or this is not funny." And I doubt I would say that as any particular character. I don't think any particular character would be put.
We got booked to do a bar.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
With the material that we had, and then with his pig's head.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Because when you're thinking it,
I think. You guys have made so many people laugh. You've entertained so many people. Do you realize that? Do you know how much happiness and joy and hilarity you've actually brought into people's lives? Yes, individually doing your own thing, but as a collective as well. I mean,
we've always underestimated our talents. I think if we have any downfall, is that we got offers in those days in Edinburgh. We were getting offers BBC things, and we never really followed it up because I don't think we truly believed they were being serious. People were backing us, and we had some big BBC executives at the time who were going. And looking back, I think we didn't have enough faith in our own. We didn't have enough self-belief, without a doubt. If we'd had a little bit more self-belief in those early days, I don't know. We could.
I was always humbled by your comments and your support, Gavin, and it was overwhelming. And everybody who likes it seems to become personal friends. So you wonder whether your audience is minimal. But then them nights when we used to look out the window and caves, and you got Flight of the Conchords on just before us, and we drew a same crowd as a Flight of the Conchords, and we were like living in hand saying, "I've always said off now." You know,
But
unbelievable.
How many times have we said that where we finished a show, and this is right up to the most recent shows we've done, where the audience, at some points, the laughter is so loud, and we've said it so many times, thinking, how have we not made it out bigger here? How have we not made it?
Well, Tim Minchin being asked to move over because we said we had the slot that he ended up having at the nightclub room, and they said, and it was Cameron Coroner who said, "Do you fancy swapping with this guy? We just brought him over from Australia. Like, you know, we're thinking, any chance you guys can move over? His name's Tim. He plays the piano, very funny and everything like that, and we'll give you a different slot." So we went, "Yeah, go on then, let him in." And look at him now.
I'm not saying that we could have made millions, but I might have not been having to search for school socks 12 hours before.
That's a nice cue into Money's Too Tight Tim Minchin.
Well, you guys, but the thing is, the experience that you guys are describing there about, you know, those, I mean, that year with Flight of the Conchords, you guys, the two shows sitting side by side, I mean, we all saw something really special happening that year for Brett and Jermaine. I mean, they just went to a whole different level. However, albeit we saw that happening, there was also a lot of us there saw what felt in the moment the same thing happening to you guys.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting is if we fast forward a few years to the Colour Ham being in the same venue, in the same time slots, we had a similar thing going on where the queues were all the way up the hill or all the way down and around the corner. We were selling out every night. We were getting the 5-star reviews, and there are those moments where we are going, why are we not getting this, and why are we not getting that? And you know, it's in the moment you do get yourself frustrated. But to go back to my question of do you realize how much happiness and joy and hilarity you've brought to people? This is something that I think I've come to terms with personally. And Gary, you've read the latest book. I talk about this very, very frankly and openly. Kev, who by the way is just tuned in, he's leaving comments saying has he missed anything. Kev refuses to read the book at the moment because he's worried that there's stuff in there that'll upset him and all sorts. Gary's making visual gags again for the listeners. So what I was going to say there was that I've made a peace in my own mind with it that I can now look back on that and go, do you know what? We might not have become the Hollywood superstars. We might not have made the millions, but we fucking did it. We did it. There's so many people out there who only can dream about doing the Fringe, who can only dream about going on stage, and they don't actually, for whatever reason, not always their fault, they don't go for it. But people like you guys, you did it. You did it. You're still doing it, but you did it, and you brought so much joy. And that year in 2003, I was coming off the back of a really shit time because my first attempt at comedy had all imploded and gone terribly wrong. But I was the guy. I was going to say the kid. I mean, compared to you guys, I am just a child. But I was the kid that was sitting in that audience every day, watching you guys Slaughterhouse live, going, that's what I want to do. And do you know what, guys? A few years later, I fucking did it, and I did it because of you. And I want to say publicly a massive thank you to you guys for helping me to see that it was possible to dream up these crazy ideas, these crazy characters, put on the most ridiculous costumes. And I can tell you right now, the most nervous I've ever been in a show was the night that you guys came to watch.
Wow. Oh, wow. It was a great show. It was an amazing show. And it was packed. It was so packed. It was like, was that the last gig? One of your last gigs?
Well, it was. Actually, I can't even remember, but that's the most nervous I ever was because you guys were in the show. So a big thank you from us. But I do need to say we're out of time, guys.
Oh no! So, we've not said how much we love Gav though, because one of the things I remember. We've got to say it. We've got to say it because at the end of that, we love you, Gav. At the end of that first run, and you said one thing. We were all drunk having a big party at the end of our first run, and you just you grabbed my arm and with that look of that Gav look of this is serious now. I'm not fucking about. This is what it's about. And you went, it's been special.
No, I said you're special.
Brew. Brew. I the word brew. It's special.
Special brew. Well, listen,
It's only the beginning, guys.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, listen, guys, a huge thank you for coming on the show. I'm sorry Kev wasn't able to join us. He's obviously, Steve, as you know, his schedule at the moment is mad. You've been
crazy.
through it.
It is utterly crazy, yeah.
But he sends his love. We'd love to have you guys back on another time. When Kev and I are both on, we get our guests playing all sorts of crazy games. But you guys have done exactly what I thought and hoped you would do tonight, which was a wee bit like what Jason Byrne did. You come on and it's like somebody pushes play, and I just sit back, and you guys do your thing. So listen, just before I say cheerio to you guys, I'm just going to say to our audience, we're back next week. It'll be Kev and myself. We're hoping to have a guest on next week. I'm not going to tell you who it is just yet because it's not 100% confirmed. And for everyone that's listening, we've been trying desperately to get Tiffany on the show, as an 80s pop songstress. Wow. She's number one on the list, and we've even set up a crowdfunder campaign on Cameo for her to make an announcement about coming on our show. And the crowdfunder's still running. Thank you to our listeners. We've now raised £25. We need another 75. We need another £75 in order to get her on. So everybody that's listening, either live or on Spotify or Apple, make sure you get on. Help us get Tiffany on the show. So we will be back next week. Once again, though, a big thank you to Gary, Martin, and Steve. And Steve, big luck, mate, and lots of love for BGT. But to all three of you,
dream scenario. Me and Kev in the final.
Kev didn't bother turning up tonight, so I think we're supporting Steve at the moment. But guys, in all seriousness, big love. We'll see you soon, and thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to end the broadcast right now, but you guys stay where you are. Don't you go anywhere. But to our audience, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
And
cheers.
Take care.